Man, was I excited to finally get to hear this album. Marmozets with their second album, Knowing What You Know Now. Their first album came out in September of 2014, and when I was doing research for this review, I discovered that this album has actually been finished since January of last year. Yeah, for a whole year, a little more, this album has actually been done. So, why? Why did you make me wait, Marmozets? Why? So if you've not heard their first album, it mixes several different subgenres of rock together in a really neat way. Kind of a math rock, if you will. That's not a term that gets thrown around a lot, but basically in the first one they use lots of different rhythms and change up in rhythms in it, so a lot of people will use the word math to describe that. I'm not really sure where that term comes from, but it makes sense once you know what you're looking for. A little bit of post-hardcore in that first one. There was some heavy breakdowns and stuff. A little bit of punk too, just a little bit, not a lot, but enough to spice things up with it. I was absolutely in love with their first album when I first heard it, and still am, absolutely one of my favorite albums from that year. So when the singles started rolling in for this one, we got Play and Habits, and I liked the songs, but they were different. They were unexpected, I guess you could say. Play, I actually had a legitimate complaint about. The opening where it just keeps repeating play over and over, that was kind of annoying a little bit, to be honest. I found it to be. But the song picks up after that. I really enjoy the rest of the song. The band goes back to doing what they're good at. Habits has kind of a weak chorus. I don't know, it just didn't really do anything to make the song any better, I thought. The verses are really good in it though. So after getting those first two singles, you know, there was some hype, but also some worry that this album would not really be able to follow up the first one. Then you got Major System Error was the third single, and man, did that make me a lot more confident that this album would be able to be a proper follow-up to the first one. It's back to what the band is really good at, you know, all the different subgenres like I named before. Rebecca's vocals are fantastic on this thing all the way through. Speaking of Rebecca's vocals, something you're gonna notice after you get about halfway into this album, something that's absent from this one, if you're familiar with the first album, is kind of their post-hardcore sound. They just mostly took it out in the way that there's no more breakdowns, really. There's not really any more harsh vocals either. She used to do some screaming vocals on the first album, and she was good at them too. The best way I can describe the change in her vocals on this one, she's like more feminine, which is kind of weird to say since she is a woman, but on the first one, she oftentimes was a lot more grungy, and like I said, she did the screaming vocals and stuff. The screaming vocals are almost completely absent from this album, and there is a part of me that's disappointed in that, but the band is trying something new on this album. She does a lot more of these really high, like falsettos. Can you keep it together? Can you keep it together? They're just sprinkled throughout different songs. Some songs use them real prevalently all the way through. To be honest, I was happy to see the band evolve in kind of a safe way to where they could do it and not lose really any fans. I've seen some people complain about it a little bit, and you know, I guess that's just gonna happen with any amount of change, but I really enjoyed these changes, to be honest. And it can be dangerous for a band to just stay in one place, you know, and not change anything at all. Some bands do it and pull it off okay, but then you still have people complaining that, oh, this band never makes a different album, they always release the same thing over and over. So I guess you can't make everyone happy. Now that you're getting into the mid section of this album, you get to a track called Insomnia, and this is where we get our first real change of pace on the album. It's very, very soft and just carried by Rebecca's really beautiful vocals. She sings in the really high range on this one. She actually reminds me of, you guys remember that band Tattoo from back in like the late 90s, early 2000s? Yeah, that. Kind of reminded me of that. After Insomnia, you get some more tracks where the band goes back to their more typical sound. Start Again and New Religion are some more just fantastic tracks. Normally I like to give you guys like 3 songs that were my favorites from the album. That's really hard to do on this one, so I'm just going to try to point out the ones that I really, really thoroughly enjoyed, because there's more than 3. As we get towards the close of this album and the final tracks, we come to a song called Me and You. This is the longest song that the band has ever attempted. It's still doesn't even quite make 5 minutes, so it's not like it's a long song, but it is the longest song that the band has ever tried. And from what I found in doing a little research about it, it's apparently about the passing of the grandmother of Rebecca and her brother, who are, you know, both members of the band. I think it's 2 sets of siblings in this band, and she wrote it about her grandmother passing away, and it's just really, really beautiful and atmospheric. It's very sad as well, especially knowing that it's about that. This song is very, very good at making you feel something. I really, really enjoyed this track. It's very calm and just carried by her vocals and some very soft guitar that just kind of weaves in and just slowly, slowly carries you through this track. Man, this one is really definitely one of my favorites. I said one of my favorites. It's not my favorite. My favorite is the track that follows after that, Suffocation. This is a fantastic track. It sounds like they pulled this one straight from the first album. It does everything that I loved about the first album in it. The album closes with Run With The Rhythm, and I thought it was a good choice to make this the final track on the album. It's got a nice, slow pace to it, and it doesn't really build. It just kind of all of a sudden changes sound entirely. All of a sudden you're like, oh shit, now it's much louder than it was a second ago, and just kind of hits you like a wall, and does that a couple times in the song where just, you know, they're rocking along real hard and then it will go back to being calm and vice versa. So this one felt like a good choice to close the album out with. As when any band releases a very, very fantastic piece of work like Marmozets did with the first album, it's so hard to follow it up and not disappoint people. The sophomore album to me feels like the hardest one to make if I was in a band, you know. You've set all these expectations with the first one, and then how are you supposed to come back and make everyone happy again with the second one? You know, you've got people who want evolution in the band. You've got people who like the first one just the way it was and want the band to stay the same and to do more of that. And you can see both sides of the coin there. You know, you can understand why each part of the fan base might feel that way. Marmozets, I thought, did a good job of trying their best to appease both sets of fans who might feel one way or the other. Yes, I know a lot of people are going to miss the post-hardcore part of the band, the breakdowns and the heavier parts and the screaming, and trust me, I missed it too. But what they replaced it with on this album is done very well, and I was very happy with the way that this band decided to evolve on the second one. So I'm kind of in the middle on this. You know, I do like bands to evolve, but but I also like, if a band has found a good sound, why not, stick with it for the most part. And that's kind of what they've done to me, is what I felt like. Maybe on the third album, if they bring back a little bit more of the post-hardcore, I would gladly welcome that. 8.5. Right? Half? I don't know. 8.5 out of 10 is what I'm giving this thing. I really, really enjoyed this album. My complaints are very minimum. There's no bad songs on the album. There's none that are bad. There's just a few that are just not great. And that's the only thing holding this thing back from being, even higher on the rating than it is. So, bravo, Marmozets. You guys have done it again. And if you keep this pace up with putting out albums like this, you are going to be around for a long time, because these guys are getting lots of praise for the work that they're doing, and they deserve every bit of it. So, guys, please listen to this one. This one will not disappoint you. And that's all I have to say about this one. So, enjoy your day, guys, or night, or whatever time it is when you're watching this video. Take care.